Hello. Oh my goodness. Okay, guys. So this episode is gonna be good. Okay, I'm with my girl, Sarah, and something she says during this podcast episode was that it's her overwhelmed toolkit. And man, it just hit different. We talk all about how to battle with feeling overwhelmed, especially when it comes to social media, because social media can sometimes be the source of where a lot of our feelings of being overwhelmed comes from. And it's exhausting. But at the same time, we don't necessarily want to give up social media. We don't necessarily want to completely go off the grid. Although I will say there've been a couple times I've been very, very tempted. But this is just a really fun episode. Sarah is really, really cool. I love how she says she lives out of a suitcase because she is all over the place. She lives a really fun life. Her and her husband are absolutely the cutest human beings. And I think you guys are going to love this episode so, so much. Okay, so let's jump in and talk all about the toolkit for feeling overwhelmed with Sarah. Okay, I am here with Sarah and I'm so excited because I love following you on Instagram. You're absolutely the cutest human being. Oh my gosh,
Thank
this is gonna be such a
you.
good conversation. But as you know, okay, so we start every single episode off with what we're drinking, okay? I have a cold brew right now, but I'm drinking it in a mug and I feel like it makes it special. So
I
I just
love
had to
that.
throw it out there. It's in a mug, so it's
I
cool.
love that.
What are you drinking?
Well, first of all, I'm very, very honored to be here. Thank you so much. But I feel like this is the most unrelatable part of my personality. I'm drinking water. And I literally am not a coffee girl. And I feel like people are like not relating to that. They're like, I don't get it. But I just never got into it. My parents never drank it. My husband doesn't drink it. But I have my water in my nice little St. Louis Blues mug. Just like,
I love
it's a
it.
good
Oh my
time.
gosh. Yeah. And then, so do you do like teas or anything, or is it like literally nothing?
This is like not my proudest moment, but I will do like Crystal Light
Mm-hmm.
packets with caffeine if I need it for in my water. So it's like it's just a bunch of chemicals, but I feel like I just like sweet tasting drinks, and so I will say like my husband sometimes will grab like an oat milk shaken espresso from Starbucks, and I'm kind of liking those. So I feel like you never know. I might just derail from my previous self and become a coffee girl.
Honestly, maybe you're gonna get into it like really soon, and then you're just gonna be so off the deep end. You're just gonna drink coffee all the time then.
You never know. I mean, we are going to Europe in like 2 weeks, and I feel like I could just like sip on my espresso there, and it would be a whole vibe.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you guys to go to Europe. We were talking about this earlier, and like seriously, that's gonna be so fun. You have so many fun trips coming
I'm
up.
so excited. It's going to be such a blast. Zach has never been to Europe. So I went one time with my mom in college. And so we were long distance at the time. Like, we were still dating. And I remember just like walking around Paris being like, I just want to come back here with Zach. And so I'm very, very, very thankful and excited for that.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you guys. And actually, I'm leaving for Europe in a couple weeks too. So like I feel like we're gonna be so close, but
That's
so far at the same
amazing.
time.
What like timing are you going?
We're leaving June 1st and we'll be there through like June 12th.
Okay, literally we just miss each other. We're May
Just
20th
miss each
through
other.
30.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh, so close.
So close.
I love that. Okay, so I really want to talk to you today about healthy relationship with social media because I mean, you have your podcast Beyond the Gram, but also at the same time you're not totally anti social media. You're not like get rid of it, get off of it, all of those things. You're all
Yeah.
about the balance of it. So I would love to know what is your best piece of advice when it comes to social media?
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of learning for that in my own life in the last like probably year because I used to put a lot of pressure on myself specifically for Instagram stories. I know that sounds weird, but it's like I felt like it needed to be so in the moment. And I felt like I needed to share all the things on Instagram stories. And I would just burn myself out over and over and over because I'm like, this is just exhausting. Like, I'm trying to live my life and like pull my phone out and try to like capture the funny moments, but then it kind of like makes the moment weird. And I finally just was like, you know what? I give up. Like, I give up on this. And I'm just gonna film stuff whenever I want to film it. And then when I'm back home and I'm in my sweatpants, I'll edit it and put it on the gram. And so Zach and I always make the joke because some of his like teammates would follow me And he would go into practice and they would be like, "Oh, you were in New York City today?" And he was like, "No." And he doesn't even like use Instagram, so he doesn't know like what's on my story at what time. But truly, like, I guess this is the least authentic part of my social media is like nothing is happening in real time because it just doesn't make sense for my life. And I finally got to the point where I was like, maybe that's better. Maybe it's better that, you know, I show that like you can have your life and live it and like live it off of social media and then come back and post about it later. And like, I don't think that's being inauthentic. I think that's being a real person who wants to enjoy their life in the moment. So basically, now what I do is like, we were just in New York City visiting my cousins for the weekend. All of our cousins came into New York City, and I basically just like took a bunch of content all throughout the weekend and ghosted social media. Like I didn't get on once and then come back and post it later. And I feel like that just helps me like have much more of a balance and just feel good about what I'm putting out there cuz sometimes like you misspell something or you say something that like you look back at and you're like, I wish I wouldn't have said it that way or whatever. So it's like I feel like that just gives me like a break in the pace and I just like I give myself that grace to do it that way and for now it's working really well.
I think that is absolutely genius. I love that so much. So last summer when my husband and I we were in Europe, that was what I would do is I would take content all day long, but I never opened social media once. And then we'd get back to our hotel that night and I would like upload everything my story, make a post for the day, and I was like, okay, done. And then I'd close it and it was so
Perfect.
great. But then I came back home and I was like, oh, I gotta post, like, I've gotta be on my stories, I've gotta be active. And that pressure came back. And so recently, what I've been doing is I have like little check in times. So, like, right before I start work, I might post a couple from like my morning routine, whatever I did in the morning on my
Hmm.
story. And then in the night, like after my husband and I hang out or whatever, I might post a couple. But removing the pressure to post in the moment is such a good piece of advice because seriously, like you said, it's not being inauthentic, it's literally being a human. It's being in the moment. In fact, it's probably being more authentic in person
Yeah.
than it is
Yeah.
when you're choosing to try to show everybody the exact moment it's happening. That's just a lot. It's a lot. And
It's a
I love
lot.
how you said it led to like burnout for you because that happens all the time when you put pressure on social media and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I want to delete it all. I just want to be like off the grid. Like I'm so sick of this.
Yeah.
But there's so many good parts of social media too, you know? And you don't
Hmm.
necessarily want to do that. So I think that is genius. I love that
Thank
so
you.
much.
It's
So
definitely
where
been key for me.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I can imagine. So, where did your passion for social media and also Jesus come from? Tell us a little bit more about your backstory.
Yeah, so I was an only child growing up, and I just loved crafts, like creativity and stuff. I had a cousin, she was like my best friend and kind of like a sister to me, and we would just make videos all the time. Like, we have some really cringe videos of like singing to like Ashley Tisdale songs, and like our like crop little zip up jackets. Do you remember when those were all the rage when
Oh
like
my
Hannah
gosh,
Montana was out?
yes.
So I mean, we just always loved creativity, photography. Like we were always those girls like going out in our backyard. Like we have these photo shoot pictures where we have like glitter all over our faces and we're like holding the hose. Like we're trying to be artsy and it's like really not working. But like we just always loved that. We always were really creative and I just always felt like creativity was something that I just enjoyed and like I just felt called to. But like when I graduated college, I really felt like I wanted to move up to Boston to not be long distance with Zach anymore because we had done long distance my entire college career. And I was like, okay, I had my own little adventure. I'm ready to be with him. And the only job that I could find was something super not creative in like a sales type position. So took that job and just kind of felt so stuck because I was like, how am I going to get out of this and get into a more creative type of role? And I was praying about it and praying about it. And I feel like God is really good at like giving you gifts and like actually having like your life purpose align with those gifts and kind of using what you're good at and you're passionate about to be able to make an impact on others. And sometimes that's why we can feel so stuck is like you're not in the role that like God really made for your personality, but that doesn't mean that like you're not learning something in this season if that's where you are. But anyway, I was like really struggling. Like, I just hate this position. Like, I wasn't having the best attitude, I'm not gonna lie. And I went on a run one day and I just like poured my heart out to God. And I was like, I just need to figure this out. Like, what do I do? And I had recently like started posting more on social media and everything. And I had gotten into like a girls kind of like Christian group on Instagram, and I knew one of those girls was a virtual assistant. So I decided like, you know what? Like I just had this piece about like I need to reach out to Tristan and see what she has to say. And it was such a God thing. She like walked me through what she does, which is virtual assisting, and I was able to quit my job shortly thereafter and do that, which is a very creative role and it allows me to do more creating online. So that's kind of where the creativity came from. And then as far as like my faith, I feel like I grew up in church. I grew up with parents who were believers and they enrolled me in Christian school and everything. So I feel like that was a great foundation. But throughout my life, like different things happening, I just feel like I really saw Jesus work in my life and in others' lives in such big and powerful ways that like over time building blocks of just like wow, this is real like started to happen. I started like, I was a counselor at Kanakuk, which is like a big Christian camp in our area, and like that summer I really feel like solidified my faith, things like that. So
Wow, I love that so much. And I love that you were able to pray to God and say like, God, I don't feel like I'm using the gifts that you've given me and I want to steward them. And then you're able to find that virtual assistant position and use your creativity. And I think that takes a lot of self-awareness on your part to look at the gifts and say, okay, I know God, you have empowered me in these ways and I want to
Mhm.
use those to glorify you. So I need you to open up some doors here, and you took
Yes.
steps and you were active in that, and that's really cool to see that because I think sometimes it's hard to one recognize your gifts and then two have a deep desire to steward them well for the Lord, and you did that so beautifully. So I really applaud you on that because that can be really challenging, but that's so cool that you did that. I love it.
Thank
Okay,
you so much.
yeah, so something that you talk about in your podcast Beyond the Gram was feeling overwhelmed. This was like a later thing, and I was obsessed with everything that you talked about, just like with the overwhelmed feeling. Especially, I think it's hard when you are comparing on social media to other people and where they're
Hmm.
at in life, because there are people who, post every single moment, it feels like, except for the bad ones, and you compare to that and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm not there. And then it leads to feelings of maybe jealousy or just like worthlessness, and it can be so overwhelming. So what do you do when you feel overwhelmed like that?
Okay, so I feel like here's like the toolkit for feeling overwhelmed for me. So, number one, I have to check myself and check like how much am I consuming and what am I actually doing for my own life? Because I feel like sometimes social media, I can just consume it a little bit too much. And one of the things that's been really beneficial is there's actually a way that you can, in your settings of your phone, like lock yourself out of an app for a day. So it'll give you 1 minute and it's like a screen time lockout. And my husband has the passcode. So on Sundays, my Instagram and TikTok just lock and I have to have the day without them. And that's been a really good like habit and discipline to just have a Sabbath day, like focus on church, focus on the people I'm around, and like be forced to just be like, what is life without social media? And I think that's taught me a lot because in the days when I feel overwhelmed, it's like, okay, but what could I do to actually, like, in my physical life, like, feel better right now? Like, it's not scrolling, so what else is it? Is it going on a walk and just like being in the fresh air? Is it like hanging out and going on a walk with my husband? Or, just going and like taking a few deep breaths and just taking some time to myself? Like, maybe I'm honestly just really hungry and I need to go like have a lunch or something, and like that will reset me. And I feel like at the end of the day, just focusing on like, okay, you know what? Am I being productive in this moment in something that I feel is important? If I am, then great. And I don't need to feel like I need to accomplish 10 things at one time. I can just focus on the one thing that's important and then move on to the next. And I feel like just giving myself the grace to focus on one task at a time. And if all those other 10 things on my to-do list don't get done today, they can get done tomorrow and it's not a big deal. I feel like one of the biggest things for me, one of Zach's groomsmen at our wedding, he's a very, very like chill guy, and he would just every single time something was like minorly or majorly going wrong at our wedding, he'd be like, Sarah, it'll buff. And I'd be like, you know what, you're right. Like, and I feel like I always hear his voice in my mind, like whenever I'm starting to get like, because I'm just like a little bit more of an anxious personality. I just want to be perfect at everything, but I will hear his voice in my mind being like, it'll buff. And I'm like, yeah, it'll buff. It's fine.
Oh my gosh. I love that. That's such good advice, especially on a wedding. Like, it'll buff. Oh my gosh, you're
Oh
fine.
my
Like,
gosh, it helped me so much on our wedding day. Like, all the things that go wrong, and you're like, okay.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so good. I'm so proud of like him for stepping and be like, yeah, so chill. But it sounds like that's his personality. He just like lives in that chill zone. And
Oh, he is. He's so fun.
oh, I don't understand how people can live like that because I'm the same with you, where it's like a little bit more of like perfectionism, a little more anxiety around that. And I look at people who are so chill and I'm like, oh, I wish I could be in your brain for like a few minutes just to see what it's like, the peace you must feel.
I know. My husband is that way, and I always ask him about his brain, and he's like, Sarah, there's nothing in it. Like, I don't know what you mean.
That is
There's just
so
nothing of it.
funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it must be nice.
It really must be. But at the same time, like I will say like there are benefits to our personalities as well. Like it is cool to have a personality where like you feel like because I don't know about you, but like I feel so much joy in like
Yes.
achieving and like trying to build something and
Yeah.
just feeling like wow, I accomplished something and like I pushed myself and like it came out great, you know.
I think it's very cool to see that you and your husband have that kind of balance between you because me and my husband have that too, where it's like if it was just me, nothing would probably be get done. Like it would just be like a constant Zen state. But if it was just him that way, but if it was
Right.
just me, all we would do is work. Like we would
Yeah.
just keep going and we would just
Yep.
keep striving, but we level each other out, and I think that's really
Exactly.
cool. And I think you guys do that for each other too because you, I mean, the world would be so like stagnant if it was just full of people who are calm and, in the moment and zen, but also the world would be a very hyper place if it was just us. So I love the balance.
100% I agree.
Okay, so I mean, if you were talking to someone, one of the listeners right now who is just really trying to find a sustainable way to live a life that won't lead to them being overwhelmed. I know you mentioned, checking yourself and pulling off of social media a little bit, but do you have any like tangible steps for someone listening right now that are like, I feel overwhelmed, but I don't want to? What would you say to them?
That is such a good question. And I really think it all comes down to balance in life. Like, it's balance in so many, I mean, every aspect has balance. Like, when you're thinking of, like, okay, I want to have a healthy body, so I want to eat well. But then it's like, but I still want to go out and eat pizza with my friends or go on an ice cream date or whatever. So it's like, okay, can I make a balance where it's like, you know, during the day when I'm just working, I'm going to choose like healthy choices. And then when it's time to go out with my friends, I'm gonna go and have that pizza and not even think about it. Like, I'm not gonna feel guilty. I'm just gonna enjoy the pizza and move on. And, like, I think that, like, that is gonna lead to a healthy body and a healthy mind because you're not obsessing over it. It's the same thing with, like, relationships. Like, obviously, relationships take time. Like, having a husband, like, takes time. You have to, like, give him quality time and you have to give your mom quality time and then your friends and like all these people are like hey, can you do something with me on Saturday? And you're starting to feel like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I think it all comes down to like balance. Like, okay, if I've spent every of the last Saturdays with my husband, maybe it's time to do a girls' day. And if I've spent no time with my mom, like I need to make sure I spend a little bit of time with her. But it's also okay to be like, okay, well, I just saw you last Saturday, so I'm gonna like prioritize spending time with my husband this Saturday or whatever. And just being okay to make those boundaries and to just recognize that you're only one person. And so you can't be doing multiple things all at one time, and it's okay. And I think that's one of the things that I can struggle with is just feeling like if I ever am disappointing anyone, um, by having to say no. But I think that this is the best in terms of like saying no, my sister-in-law is brilliant at saying no. And she always prefaces it rather than being like, I just can't because I'm so overwhelmed and blah, 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 blah. She's like, that sounds so fun. I wish I could be there. And she's so enthusiastic in her no. She's like, it sounds amazing. We have all this stuff going on with the kids. And so, like, maybe next time, 100%. And it just makes you feel good as the person who asked her to do something. So I really take a note from her book on that and just give myself grace to be like, okay, I can try to find a balance here and I'm not going to be perfect at everything, but at the end of the day, life is all about balance. And as long as you are feeling like comfortable with that balance, that's the best that you can do.
That's so good. And I think it's so easy to assume you're living in balance, but then when you really pull back and you check yourself and you're like, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Why am I feeling overwhelmed? You notice that the scales gradually started tipping extremely. And then all of a sudden you're all the way over here giving all of your time to other people. And you're like, oh, I actually am not living in balance anymore. I'm not either honoring my relationship with God, spending enough time with Him or myself or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, because it's easy to fall out of balance very quickly. So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
regular checks into that moment of like, am I living in balance? Okay, we need to reevaluate. And it's really cool when you can do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is something just kind of a more fun question, okay? I love how when you said you're living out of a suitcase, okay? Like you're a busy girl because your husband, he plays hockey, you're all over the place, you guys
Mm-hmm.
travel a lot, and there's just a lot going on. I mean, you have your podcast, you're a content creator, all the things, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know a couple details, like granular details in your morning routine that helps you stay inspired through all of the things going on around you. So, like things that you do every single day that help maybe make some of the exterior pressures a little less crazy.
Definitely. So I would say my morning routine has probably like three major steps that I always try to hit at least in some capacity. So the number one thing is to move my body. So I will wake up in the morning and usually do a workout. It doesn't have to be the longest workout ever. Like, oftentimes it'll be 45 to an hour, but sometimes it's like 25 minutes if I just need to like do something really quick, but just something to get my blood pumping and like just feel the endorphin rush. I find that is really helpful for my energy just sustained throughout the day. And obviously like there's health benefits as well, but really for me it helps like calm me down and just like get me in like a good headspace for the day. So love to do that in the morning, and then I like to do something in terms of growing myself spiritually. So I don't like have like, okay, I have to do, you know, this amount of Bible reading or I have to do like this length of prayer. I just look to like take one step forward spiritually. Like, can I read a chapter of the Bible and pray? Can I write down three things I'm thankful for and thank God for them? Like, I don't try to give myself like a hard, like, this is exactly what I need to do, because I don't ever want it to feel like a chore or something that I have to check off the box, like a school project or anything. Like, I want it to feel authentic to like, how am I feeling in this moment? Sometimes I'm like really stressed about one random area and I just like journal about that and like give it to God, and that's what I need for the day. Other times I'm like, I'm trying to like make it through the Bible, so I'm in Psalms right now. So I'm going to read a few Psalms. So I just do something that will progress me spiritually, and then the last step of my morning routine is just to like eat a really healthy and like protein packed breakfast with my husband and just kind of connect with him. We always eat breakfast together, and like that's just like our quick little like start to the day to just kind of like be together, and then I jump into my morning and my work and all that.
I love that. Okay, so when you say protein packed, what does that usually look like for you?
So we eat a lot of egg whites and like veggies for breakfast. So I feel like typically we rotate between two. We'll do like egg whites, kale, arugula, and then Parmesan omelets, and then do like little potatoes on the side. Or I will often do like a tortilla with egg whites and peppers and like cilantro on top. I feel like that is so like most people are like, I do a smoothie, but like if I do a smoothie, I'm hungry an hour later. So
Right.
I feel like this breakfast really sets me up for success throughout the day because I just like feel the most energetic and on it when I eat like that kind of breakfast.
I love that. Okay, perfect. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm so excited about this conversation. I love how you said your toolkit for feeling overwhelmed. That was just so good. And you gave so many amazing tips for this. So, where can people find you, follow you, all of the things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have a podcast as well. It's called Beyond the Gram. So you can find our podcast page on Instagram at Beyond the Gram, and then my just personal life, like just happy kind of inspo handle is at Sarah K. Bross, and I just share like cute little videos on there and just like photos from life and just kind of make it like fun and happy vibes, I feel like.
Yeah, seriously, like I said in the beginning, you're one of my favorite people to follow on Instagram because it is
Thank
so
you.
just joyful and it's just living life. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel forced or overly saturated by anything that can lead to comparison. So often for me personally, it's just happiness on there. So I love following
Thank
you, and
you.
all of this will be linked in the show notes for you guys. So obviously check it all out. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was such an honor to have you, and I feel so blessed by this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much, Belle. It's been so fun.